Nice.
Hello and welcome to the ASMR version of Two Whole People.
That's a weird noise. No.
Hello and welcome to Two Whole People. I am your co-host, Connor, and this is your other co-host,
Kevin the Gremlin.
Kevin the Gremlin. In today's episode, because the previous one did so well, and we know that because we've put it out and we've seen how well it's done at this point in time, we decided to make another one.
Yeah, two of them.
Yeah, and not immediately after the first one.
Yeah, no, it's not the same day.
And all we did was change our shirts.
Yeah, that didn't happen. I can't believe you would say that. Fake audience.
How absurd. Okay, so in this episode, what we wanted to talk about, and again, this is going to be a podcast about data engineering, data science, software stuff in general, and also just whatever we want to talk about. In this episode, we wanted to talk about, because we both very recently worked at a startup as a software dev.
Yes.
We were going to talk about what it's like to work at a startup.
Yes. And obviously, we're not saying that every startup is like the ones that we work at currently or we have worked for in the past. But in our experience, these are some things that you might want to be expecting if you're planning on working for a startup or you're applying to one. So, yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So we each have 3 points here.
Yes.
That we plan to go through. So the first point here is while working at a startup, we've both experienced that you need to wear a lot of hats all the time. You'll for sure be the QA. No matter what your software role is, you're going to be the QA for that role. You're not going to have a QA team. If you do and you work at a startup, that's like a miracle. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how the business leaders had the foresight to make that a thing, but that's a miracle. But so if you're a data engineer, if you're a business intelligence dev, if you're just a software dev, no matter what, you will need to write the tests for your code. You are going to need to be the one who tries to dive deep and break whatever you're currently trying to work on, which does suck.
It's gotten the worst.
Because that is for sure a job in and of itself that is an entire job. That is why we have the role of QA.
Yeah, it's like a career.
Yeah, it's
like a whole thing. Being a QA engineer, like there are some geniuses out there that do QA that I just don't get how they're so good at it. Because like I was doing it on the side for a while and for my own code.
It just takes a lot of work. So you'll be doing a lot, and you will also probably be doing a lot of the management and a lot of the product lead type work.
Yes.
Which you can probably talk to.
Yes. Yeah. So I was the only person in my engineering department for a software company for our startup. Still, we've got a couple more now, but I kind of am running that product lead, product manager role still. And it's rough, and it's something that you can probably expect, especially if your engineering team is small. But I would say, like, if you do get the chance to do it, go for it and really try hard to understand how to do it well, because it gives you a better appreciation for your customers and customer experience and why, your code has to look good and why it has to operate as expected. And all of those different things, because you get to see from your customer success managers and all of those people and your salespeople what the customers are looking for, and then you get to translate that into code, into tasks, into epics and processes that help give the users a better experience and make your application successful. And that's really a rewarding feeling, even if it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, so a lot of work there. Instead of people giving you the requirements for the work that you would need to get done, you have to be the one to seek out what those requirements would be, and then you have to create the stories that you'll give to yourself to do them.
Yes.
Which you can learn a lot by doing that, but I feel like at most stable companies that have had an IT department for like an acceptable amount of time, that's just not going to be the case. You're going to have a project lead, you're going to have a project manager, you're going to have people that are going to help to speak with the business, to take in what the business has to say, to create the work for you from all of that. And that's just going to be a part of the world that you won't have to worry about that much. But if you're at a startup, you have to do everything.
Yeah.
So.
Learning how to write, even if you're not at a startup, I would suggest learning how to write user stories and trying to write a few just for yourself, because it is really informative. And it's a really simple way for you to be like, oh, like this is what people are trying to accomplish with my software, and it'll inform your development really well.
Yeah, and I joined a startup about a year ago, and I began my work there as a data engineer, and then and that kind of involved I had to speak with the business to come up with what the data model would be so that we can manage all the customer transactions that we were going to manage and store the ones that we had to keep. All of that work, and we had to create the database for that on the OLTP side, and I'm not going to dive into what exactly that is in this video. We could maybe do one in the future, but just think of it as the online transactional database side, where we have a database set up specifically for the purposes of tracking and maintaining all of the transactions that take place on the front end of the business, and then also on the back end. If there's any business processes that have to run on the back end, run approvals on the customers and stuff like that. So I was primarily on the transactional side of the business, working with the database end of things, where all the customer transactions were going to be stored. But then at the same time, the business leads really wanted to start work on a lot of the reporting and stuff on the analytics and on the OLAP side, which is the analytical part of the database world. So I kind of had to shift between a data engineer and a business intelligence dev, back and forth, and which was fine. You know, there's a lot of overlap between the two, but the specific work to be done by both of them is the mindset that you have to be in is very different. So it took some time to get used to trying to shift scope between the two roles back and forth. You know, and then of course on top of that, it's I was in the same kind of place as Kevin here, where I had to go and gather what the requirements were for my work from the business leads, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but I think we have it here that we kind of had to I had to interrogate the business leads to get out of them. It's like, okay, you know how this business is going to work. It doesn't exist yet. We're trying to build it. You know how it's going to work. Tell me what I need to do. Like, what code do I need to write to get the business to work the way that you guys have it working in your heads? Because if you don't have a business yet, trying to yank all those requirements out of the business leads is a difficult task, for a couple of reasons. And we could maybe just kind of transition into that now. But some of those reasons being, there's a lot of times in a startup where a lot of the business leads actually don't know the specifics around how precisely the business is going to work. And if you're a software dev, you need to know precisely how the business is going to work, because you need to precisely code exactly what is going to happen. When a customer submits whatever they're going to submit, whatever service you're trying to provide, if it's a software service, you need to write code that exactly matches what the business operations should be. And if the business leagues are keeping things nice and vague, then that can be hard to do. Yeah. Well, this is picture. Like we'll sell cars. It's like,
correct.
Okay. There's a lot of specifics in there that we need to nail down.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that selling cars that we need to figure out.
Yeah, there's the risk analysis of the customer. There's the risk analysis of the customer tied to the certain car. There's the how exactly we're going to pull the credit on each person. Are we going to store our credit pulls for each person so that if we see them again, we can just use the credit that we've already pulled for that person and we don't have to pull their credit again? And if so, then how long do we keep a person's credit before we have to pull it again, because it's out of date? There's a lot of very specific things that you need to work through with your business leads in a startup, and be respectful of what they provide to the company. You're laughing because it's the knee-jerk response from a lot of the IT devs, I feel like, in these types of situations, is to start to roll their eyes into, I'm the one who is actually making the business. But it's like, pull those requirements the best you can out of what the business leads want, and in the situations where they're vague, help them along, help them get to where they need to go. Outline what the specific problems you're currently trying to fix are, in a way that they can understand. So not in a software devy way, so that they can help you to fix those problems, and they can help you to figure out what the business rules are, so that you can just do your work and move on.
And that's again, I think we talked about this a little bit in the last podcast, but communication for developers is huge, along with learning the business. Like, Google your company. That's something that I didn't think about doing, but I definitely should have, and I have since.
Like, what type of market share does your company currently have? It's like, if you don't know that, then you should Google it and see if you can find out. And like, you can even talk to the marketing people, I'm sure, and customer success, and talk to them about, what kind of people are buying this application? Like, who's our target market? Who are we trying to do this for, and what are we trying to get them to do? And that will definitely help you take those vague requirements that it's hard for business people to put into words, because they've never written code before. They don't know like the detail that has to go down to it. So you can kind of take that, and then your knowledge from, okay, these are the people we're trying to address. This is what they're trying to do. Okay, I'm going to put together this. And usually you'll take it to somebody for approval before you actually start coding. Like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. But in my case, it was just kind of like, all right, I'm going to give it a go. And I just kind of would throw out features and be like, all right, does this work? And a lot of times it did not work. So, but that helps whoever you're presenting to at the startup. It helps them to realize, in practice, this is how this is going to function. Okay, we might need to rethink this, or we might need to just tweak it a little bit, or we might, because, and you keep in mind, it might not feel this way, but in the setting of a startup, in some ways, and I think in a lot of ways, the business leads at the top have a harder job than anyone who's doing the specific work, because if your job is to write the software that does what the business leads tell you to do, and your responsibility is to make that work as best as possible, but their responsibility is to create a company that is going to be profitable.
Yes.
Which is unbelievably difficult. And normally you just have to fail over and over and over again until you can pivot enough to find, your market path and actually start to make money. But their jobs, they're doing, or they should be doing, tons of research every day about the market, about how things currently are. And there might be, if they come to you and they say, hey, the feature that you're currently working on, we actually need you to pivot entirely. That sucks. And it's going to happen a lot in the setting of a startup. Yes. But keep in mind that they're looking at the market live each day. And if they see something that's a red flag, or if they think that, oh, shoot, we can actually make a lot more money or become way more profitable if we pivot into this, sometimes they might be wrong, but if there's a lot of changes at the beginning of the start of a company, it's because they're just trying to make sure that it's successful. Because if it's not, then everybody's going to lose their jobs. So they are under their pressure. They're being cooked.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It is piping hot.
If you've ever seen Silicon Valley, I don't think that is a overreaction. Him going to the doctor and being like, you aged 80 years or whatever he says. I think that that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Because they have to figure it out. And if the money's not coming in, they have to figure out why and fix it before they have to start firing people, that's so stressful.
Man, I feel like this podcast should just be called like be nice to business people. You dang IT folk.
And that's true.
But yeah.
And I should take my own advice on that because I'm not always nice to business people.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the more
you think about it, they're not so bad.
Yeah. You know what? Let's do an episode where it's like the top 5 reasons why business people suck. But
okay.
We'll just
I've already locked and loaded. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I have a list of 20 prepped. Okay. So be nice to business leads because their responsibility load is absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
Because everyone's position at the company depends that the decisions that they're making will actually work.
Yeah.
And that's rough. Managing expectations.
Yes. Yeah. So that goes along with this like kind of interrogation of business leads. Like when you're having that conversation, because usually there's usually a process. Your company might be different, but you kind of get the idea for the feature. Somebody presents it to you and they're like, hey, this is what we want to do. Then you have a conversation with them where you're interrogating them for the requirements. And then based on your knowledge, your time, the other things on your plate, where you are in your sprint or whatever, you have to figure out how to manage somebody's expectations of like, hey, like this is cool. It would be awesome to have, but we're understaffed. We don't really have the time or the bandwidth to deal with this. And there are some things that take a higher priority. So we probably won't see this for another, 4 or 5 weeks or a month. And that does not always go over well. It's something that you have to learn to deliver with tact because
poise.
Yeah, it's hard for somebody to kind of look at you and be like, well, why can't you do it sooner? And to not just freak out on them.
Yeah, because that feels like they're saying that you're lazy or that you don't work hard, and it's just try not to take it that way.
Yeah,
and you gotta be completely honest with your project manager or your business leads, whoever you're speaking to. In this example, you have to what we just kind of talked about. Not you're not being mean to them. You're not like, oh, this is impossible. It's going to take me 8 months to do this, and you think we'll go live in 1. It's no. You gotta respect what they do, and then you just have to be truthful because they want the honest feedback. Because if you try to fudge it a little bit and go, well, yeah, I can get this done in a week, and then it takes a month, then
you're in trouble.
In deep doo doo. Yeah, deep doo doo. Because if that person went and told the sales team like, hey, we'll be good with this feature in the next 2 weeks, and then it actually takes you 3 months, then there's a bunch of customers who are sitting there waiting for your feature to be ready, and it's not ready, and then they go, well, screw this, I'm going to take my money and go elsewhere.
Yep.
And then you lose money, and then the company goes under, and then you lose your job, and then you spiral down into a bit of despair.
And then it's terrible. Then you're homeless in no time.
It's just like that. So tell the truth.
So basically just manage expectations well. And one thing to note is there's a difference between the way that we accomplish our tasks, obviously, and the way that business people accomplish their tasks. For the most part, business people have what's called a linear workflow. So the amount of time that you put in to working, it's a linear equation where the more time, the more tasks you get done. That's just the way that it works. Development is not like that. I'm sure that I'm sure that you've written code where you spent 15 minutes writing something that accomplished 6 tasks at once. And you're like, whoa, that was super cool. I did that so well. I'm so good. And then there are days when you get stuck on a bug and you're there for 48 hours. And that's just your life for 2 days. trying to solve this one bug, and then turns out it's just like a missing comma or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, imagine if, like, the sales team, like, once a week just couldn't figure out how to call people. Like, they just forgot. And, you know, they're just trying to dial the numbers, but they're like, for some reason, it just won't work. It's like that's
not
what that's what we have to deal with on the software. You know, not exactly that, but there are days that are completely down that. God bless your soul.
Oh my God, I think I just died.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, there are days that we're going to feel like they've been completely wasted because you're just trying to troubleshoot a single issue, or maybe it's a group of issues, and you can't get the story or the feature done that you're trying to get done because you're just banging your head against this brick wall trying to figure it out. But, you know, and it's not an actual waste, because if you can actually get through that brick wall, then that, you know, that time was well spent.
Yep.
Because you actually got through the bug.
And you learned something, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But that's harder for the business leads to understand. That's harder for your managers to understand. Although if they've been a manager for software devs for a good amount of time, then they should know that.
They know that.
There are days where it's like, okay, the you know, my software devs aren't just being a bunch of lazy pieces of trash. It's like they should get it that there are days that are just seemingly wasted on just trying to fix that dang bug, or just trying to figure out where the bug is. That's fun. Oh yeah, we might just do let's do an episode at some point where we talk about the stories that we have, just our worst bug moments.
Oh my gosh,
worst,
dude!
Oh god, I dropped the production data table, and like all the prod is down because I've done that.
I can't tell you. One time my local environment just shut off. Like, it just didn't exist anymore, and it, like, I could see all the files and like I could open them, but like, it just completely exploded, and I was in the middle of like a solid change in feature, like feature branch, and it was just like, I can't do anything. Yeah, I've had some. That would be a good episode.
Some hard
our top
resets.
Fives. Our top fives.
Top 5 worst moments of our life. Number 1, the day that I was born. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Back to
why we're here.
Data modeling.
I
want to talk about data modeling. And this is kind of a variant on what we were talking about, where we need to get the business requirements from people.
Yeah.
And how difficult that is. Data modeling, no matter what the startup is that you're working for, I'm going to assume it's going to need to have a database of some sort to store some sort of user information. Or else, I'm not exactly sure what the service you're providing is.
Yeah, I don't know what would work without a database.
It's just something that you never had to save the state of anything. So like, but I don't know. I mean, you know, if you go to I don't know.
No.
Most of the time, you'll probably have a database in the back end somewhere at some level. And, you know, that might vary depending on what your needs are. You might have a document store like a MongoDB or something, or you might have a relational database like a SQL Server, or
MySQL.
MySQL is the open source option, I think, or is one of the most used ones. But before you even get to that, before you get, you know, the making tables, into making relationships between your tables, into inputting rows, into jacking up your database into whatever the front end is so that they can talk to one another, before you get there, you have to model out what the database is going to look like. And that's an abstract practice that I've had to go through over the course of the past few months, that it's just really difficult, especially when, again, you're trying to detail out what the business requirements are, and then you're trying to figure out how to store the data. You know, let's say you're trying to, you are creating something like an Amazon, and you're trying to sell goods and products on your website. It's like, okay, well, you need to have a login for the user, so you need to be able to store the user on the back end, and it's like, okay, what data concerning the user are we going to save? And then how is that going to relate to all of the items in that person's cart or something like that? And then you have to model out what a product looks like so that it's abstract enough so that it can take in like all of the types of products that are in that would occur inside of a website like an Amazon. So like, you could sell a golf club, or you could sell a flat screen TV, or you can sell a bag of potato chips. It's like whatever you design as the product table or a group of tables or object inside of your data model needs to be abstract enough to allow for all of those different types of products to make sense and to be included in all of the details about those that you want to store inside of the data object. And then the relationships between those are complicated, and depending on how you want the users to interact with the website. So depending on what the transactions are, you have to design the data model a certain way so that the transactions are as efficient and as fast as possible. So that they aren't just staring at
hitting enter and then
like a spinning wheel,
getting more transactions, and then it takes longer
and just waiting. But so that's and on that point there, I just wanted to mention that in the scope of a startup, if you are a data engineer or even if you're a software dev, on some level, you're gonna have to give some sort of input into what the data model is going to be if you're not one of the engineers that actually has to be the lead on creating a new data model from scratch, because you have to do that if you're at a startup, because you're trying to create a business from nothing, and it's just a difficult thing to do, and you got to work well with the business, with all the other people in the IT departments, about what they need. Work well with the people who are trying to build out the front end, because they're the ones who are going to send the information back that's going to be stored in the database, and you have to be able to communicate effectively with basically everyone at the company. And I've just had a very challenging time with that over the past few months, but it's a very rewarding task to get through, because at the end, I have like a diagram of all the tables and all the relationships between the tables, and I can look at that and basically go, like, this is the data model that is for the business. This is how we conceptualize what the objects that our business toss around are, and it's just a cool experience to get through all that.
And as far as data modeling goes, I don't do it as often anymore. But when we first started our application, obviously it was a startup and there was nothing there. So myself and our CTO kind of got together, and it was a lot of winging it, which in hindsight is not the way to go. So definitely talk to the business people, definitely talk to your potential customers if you can get a hold of them. Talk to anybody else besides just two developers, because we definitely incurred a lot of technical debt by just kind of winging it. And we had to make a lot of modifications that threw off development timelines a lot. And we should probably explain technical debt, because that's not a very... That's probably a good idea, because and you can probably do that, but I mean, just it's very basically, if you do things dumb, then you're going to have to go back and fix it later, and that's just going to take more time than the time it would take to do it right. And this also goes in, this reaches back to managing expectations. Look at that.
It's all connected.
Yeah, like a data model. Look at that.
It's almost like we planned it, even though we didn't. But we did. We spent a lot of effort.
Yeah,
we did.
Like a ton. Yeah, a ton of effort. This was so hard. But basically, one of the things when you're managing expectations and when you're doing data modeling, or any software engineering for that matter, you kind of have to take a balance of, like, how fast can I do this, but also how well can I do this? Because if you just do things fast, and this is something I've had to explain time and time again, is if I just kind of throw out a quick fix, there's a quick fix available. Usually there is. Usually there's something that you can hard code in. You can make an easy, quick, cheap relationship or whatever and get things working. And it looks fine on the front end, but the truth is it's not built to scale. So when you do start to scale and you start to build other features off of that, well, things are going to go poorly for you. So that's kind of what technical debt is. It's the amount of code that you're going to have to refactor and change to then scale your application. And that's one thing I've been dealing with a lot at my company recently, is trying to evaluate how much technical debt we have, and how to get rid of it. And it's
a pain in the butt.
That's really rough, especially when you realize that you're the one who made all these mistakes and you're the one who caused all of it. And you're like, oh,
I am the reason why I now have to suffer.
I am not as good as I thought I was.
Yeah. And if I may, though, I'm going to put on my business hat for a moment.
And we should get a hat that says business.
Business. I'm all business, baby. What you said at the beginning was true, which is you need to balance doing things as fast as possible to meet the market demand and doing it right, so that you don't just accrue a bunch of technical debt that you have to fix at some point, or people who are newly hired have to fix at some point in the future, who have even a less idea of what the heck you were thinking when you wrote the garbage you wrote to try to get this feature done as fast as possible. But if I am to argue on the side of some technical debt is okay, which if there's probably a lot of IT-minded people out there that don't like what I just said, but if I'm to put my business hat on and say, there are times, especially in the case of a startup, where you can better serve your potential customers with a less ideal product, as long as you time the market better. So as long as you get things done faster, so that would actually benefit the company and your potential customers more, to actually get the feature out on a quicker time scale than to wait and to do it right. A lot of this depends on the specific context of what we're talking about, because there are certain things where if they're broken, then the product is completely useless.
Yeah.
But there aren't. So give the business devil his due, and there are to try to get on the middle path here, where on the IT side you're trying to flesh things out as much as possible and to design them as best as possible and to write code as best as possible and to make the best possible thing you can. And on the business side, trying to meet the market as fast as you humanly can.
Yeah.
To hit that path in the middle, you just have to talk with the business people again, which I know we hate, but you just have to do it. And there are times
actually listen to them too. That's also a big thing, because you could be like, well, like if I do this fast, like I'm gonna have to end up doing all of this work later. But like the truth is, you might just have to do it.
Yeah, you might just need to offload that onto your to your future self, which isn't a good plan most of the time. But there are times where it's like, hey, there's a big vendor who is about to give us a ton of money if we can get this working by next month, and if we can do that, then we have a lot more market share, and our business is going to be in an even better place by next quarter, and then we'll have way more time to like really deep dive, and because time is money, and if your business doesn't have money, then you don't have time to build anything, because you can't serve anybody because your business is going out of business. So so the business need of pushing fast sometimes should be the priority, but I do think it that's more the job of the business leads to push for that, and then it's more the job of all of the IT staff to push for let's make this as best as possible, and then in that type of debate
you end up with a compromise that is going
works
to meet the needs of both.
Yeah.
What's that saying? Done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. Well, that's true in the business world, but there are times where that it feels like that's not true in the IT world, because of how much work. Because there are times where, because of the duct tape, the fix is 1,000 times worse than
what it would have been to just do it right the first time.
Yeah, and I'm talking in terms of time, because if you do something stupid inside of a database and then you get millions of rows in there or something that are customer facing rows, it's it becomes very difficult to try to pivot to a design that works better when well, what do we do with all this data that we already have, and like when can we transition in a at a time where customers on the front end won't feel the lag time while we're in the middle of trying to shift to a better design. It's just, there's so many things that are like that on the IT side that I think if you're on the IT side, you need to speak to well to the business. Be like, if we like it's not like 3 days of work now or 3 days of work later. It's 3 days of work now or like a year of work at some point, because of how terrible this is going to become. But so, and on the note of that type of stressful behavior.
Look at you. Look at these segues.
That was an awful transition.
That was awesome. I loved it.
You could see the smoke coming out of my ears trying to figure out
how do I change this so that it
how do I
makes
transition? So the last point we have is, in the context of a startup, how do we manage our stress levels?
Yes. This is super, super important, especially if you're wearing a bunch of hats and like the weight of the world feels like it's on your shoulders. First of all, it's probably not.
It is.
I had to like reframe my whole way of looking at things. But when you stress out too much, and there's a bunch of science and stuff on this, but it hurts your concentration, obviously. But also, like, one thing about working at a startup is you want to be passionate about it and what you're doing. And seeing work as something that just stresses you out is going to make you not want to go to work, and it's going to make your work suffer, like, a lot.
It is.
Yeah. And like, also, obviously, you don't want to be stressed out. There's a lot of health conditions that come from that. Like, I think it was like, this is like 3 or 4 months ago, I was kind of in this situation where I was, a bunch of tasks from all of the hats that I was wearing were all happening all at the same time. And I had like this like mental break where I like walked into my boss's office and I was like shaking, and I was like, listen, I can't do this. And basically he just looked at me and he's like, all right,
you're fired.
Just go ahead and take the day off. And then when I got back, so like I took a day off and I ended up, I think it was a Friday, so I had like a 3-day weekend. It was nice. When I got back, he pulled me into his office and he's like, look, like, yeah, startups are stressful, but like all of the weight's not on your shoulders. You have a whole team. And like, yeah, you might wear a lot of hats, but there are people who are willing to help you out. There are other people on your team. I'm assuming you have other people on your team.
I do. It is not just me.
Yeah, for a while there, it was just me on the engineering team, so that was rough. But
for my team, it's me and this other guy, so it's 2. But yeah,
you guys,
we're doing our darndest.
Yeah. But yeah, so managing that stress is super important, and like there are different ways to do it, obviously, but like find something that, I almost just said like helps drop your cortisol levels. I don't think that's the best way to describe it.
Scan your bio stats.
Yeah, like find something that like I guess just makes you happy, like that you like to do.
I like to work out. I don't know if you found. I found that actually like that helps my mental health. I feel like more than my physical health. Which
Absolutely,
seems
that's super true,
crazy.
And that's scientific. Like that's like a scientific thing.
Yeah,
like if
science.
What's
up?
If you work out, it like drops something in your body. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
It for sure helps your mental health though, and like you might, if you're working a crazy amount per day, it's like, okay, how in the heck will that help me when I feel like I need to have more time to relax and to calm down? How in the heck is it going to help if I get up earlier and go to the gym and work out? I actually think that helps out more than taking that time off.
I think it does too, because especially when I'm doing something where I'm just sitting there, like the amount of work that I'm thinking about, like that I have to do tomorrow is insane. So getting up and working out in the morning and accomplishing that, those 2 tasks that are pretty difficult. First of all, getting up in the morning, which sucks. And then And then working out as well early in the morning
feel
also
like,
sucks.
Yeah, feel accomplished.
Yeah,
right away.
You
You're
feel
like,
good.
You're like, I can crush this, and then you get out all of your aggression, all your
all of your pure anger with the white hot rage.
I couldn't. This dang bug. And then you pump even harder at the gym.
Yeah, you get ripped.
Yeah, no,
Get shredded.
that's good. And then of course, you just need to eat better. And but aside from trying to work out and to eat better, that just take time off. There's going to be try not to work after hours as much as possible. I've been pushed. There's a startup I am currently at to work after hours, and I have had to do that a couple times, and that's fine. And there's going to be times where you have to do that, especially near the time when your company actually goes live and you start to service customers for the first time. It's just going to happen. You're going to have to stay up late. You're going to have to work on the weekends. You're going to have to do all that stuff. But try to set some boundaries with the other people on your team and with the people that you work for. And, just like I actually work better when I don't have to work in the afternoons, and I can actually clock out and take a break and do my own thing. When I am working, I feel like I'm more focused, and I am able to get more done if I actually take some time off. So try not to, if you're going into the position where you're about to be working at a startup, try to take some time off for yourself, because it's going to feel like that's just not an option, but it is.
Yeah, and definitely establish those boundaries early and stick to them. So like, if you say, hey, Fridays, I'm leaving at 5, and that's what's happening. On Fridays, leave at 5. And when people try and stop you, you need to say, hey, this is a boundary that I established when I was first hired. Like, I need to stick to it.
Yeah.
And people will respect that. Like, that they're not going to think that you're lazy. Well, they might, but if they do, they're dumb.
Facts.
Facts. But yeah, so like, it's just you taking care of yourself, and that's going to increase like the amount of time that you can work there and do good work there, because burnout is real, and it's something that you have to like kind of keep it from happening to you.
Yep. And like, we're not like, work hard when you're at work. Like, don't be on Facebook, don't be on YouTube, don't be doing all this other crap all day.
Facebook, what are you, a boomer? Wrecked.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know.
Wrecked.
Don't be on Tic Tac, Paddywhack all dang day.
Those Snoop chats or whatever you're doing these days.
Trying to huff your Snapchat and get all high on
those Instagram
retweets.
likes. Look at this.
We need to cut all that out. That was bad.
My God.
Don't not work when you're working. Crush it, so that when you get to the end of the day, you can confidently say, I've just blasted like through all of this. I've worked my butt off. Now I'm taking my time off. It's 5 o'clock. I'm leaving.
Yep.
And if you don't want to feel guilty or bad when you say stuff like that, it's because you have to actually kill it all day at work.
Yep.
And stay focused. And then as soon as it's 5 or whenever you get off work, then clock out, you check out, you're on your own time now. So that's what we would encourage.
Definitely.
All right, I think we're going long here. We're past the 40-minute mark, which is,
look at us.
This is our longest podcast out of the two we've done.
The other one was almost 40 minutes. This one is now over 40 minutes. So
all right. So again, if there is anything that we talked about that you would like us to dive deeper into at all, because I know we're, in these first few, we're kind of staying high level, more abstract, like tips and tricks and stuff like that. But if you want us to do any deep dives, or if you just want us to talk about something else in more detail that we talked about in this podcast, then let us know. Or if there's anything else that you want to hear us talk about, as long as it's software engineering related. I don't know if we're going to branch out from that.
We might. I mean, we're pretty big nerds, so there's a chance.
Let's talk about the new Thor movie. Let's
I haven't seen it yet, so
you're seeing it later tonight.
I'm literally gonna go see it tonight, so no spoilers in the comments, please.
Thor,
even though this might be out after.
Thor dies. Did you know that? I'm not lying.
I swear to God, if you're being legit
lying.
right now,
technically,
I'm gonna fight you. I'm
They
actually
get it.
going to fight you.
They know what I mean. Okay.
All right, then.
All right. That's how the cookie crumbles. We're gonna end it here. We're gonna post these
Somewhere
and pray
that somebody listens
to
to.
the YouTube gods. And again, light us up in the comments.
Yeah,
Destroy us.
Feel like you haven't seen Thor? What's wrong with you?
Tell us what we're doing wrong with our lives. More specifically,
With our lives.
with this show, and how we can improve, and if we made sense at all, or
We
if
probably didn't make sense, but that's just par for the course.
well,
Nice.
the end.